So, this is some crazy stuff. This video is more, I hate to say it, for me, so I could look it up in the future. Also, I figure stuff out, but it's something I knew. You know how you know something and you just kind of like don't take the proper action, and it's like it, it's bad, it's wrong, and you still do it. It's because we're human. I mean, that's why people have disorders and people smoke and people drink, and they know it's bad, they still do it. And this is kind of the same thing. It's my own cognitive dissonance, I should say. Well, I am 60, and I know that as you get older, your body starts talking to you. And I don't know if any people that are my age or older watching this, they know this. Um, and you try this and you try that, and you take medicine, and the medicine works, but then you realize, hey, this medicine, if I take it for 30 years, it might cut my life short, and so you go through these phases, and then you get a revelation, and it's not, and that's what this video is about. It's about parasites, and I'm not a doctor. I don't take people's blood. I don't even want to be a scientist anymore because the science is so messed up. It's all narrative driven, agenda driven. I mean, they say stuff just to make us do things, Well, so, and I kind of knew this, and a lot of people know this because there's videos on this, parasite cleanse, liver cleanse, intestinal cleanse, and basically, if you think of animals, they have parasites, right? They're mammals. Dogs have parasites. You're like, oh, my poor dog, you got a worm. Or, cows have them. And there's a couple different kind of parasites. We're mammals. And now it's estimated that 80% of us have some kind of thing, okay? Now, I'm going to tell you in about a minute how I found out mine and what I did to find it and who I called. And I probably won't tell you that name unless you contact me directly, because I don't want to get involved in your medical condition. But I'll tell you about mine, because I don't care what I say about myself out in public. I mean, I'm 60. I can say whatever I want, and I don't care who listens to this. But anyways, 80% of us, and I did some research, have a parasite. Now, you could have single cell parasites. You could have worms. You could have bugs. And, you could have an amoeba. You could have a ringworm. And and now that I'm 60, I remember through my last 6 years of life, I've had some weird things happen to me over the times. Now, and I know that, I had ethnic parents, where my mom was ethnic. My dad died from leukemia. I'll make a video on that one day, from General Electric, the nuclear people. Um, and so my mom was a farmer. So, of course, she made food, farm foods, so we had sausages and we ate liver, and she bought pork and beef and all that. And I'll never forget, because it burned in my brain when I was like 7 or 8. I remember looking down at the stool and I saw little white things wiggle it. And I'm just like, whoa. And I was a kid, and I was lead poisoned too, I think, because I used to eat sinkers. So, and I was kind of wild. I got kicked out of a lot of schools as a kid. And so I didn't say anything to mom about it, And then a couple, then in my 30s, maybe 30s, I see this rash, and it's like in a circle on my leg. And I'm like, what the hell's that? And I was looking it up, and it took me a while. It's a ringworm. So I didn't know it was a actual worm. I just thought it was like a ringworm rash, Ignored it. And so, then I took coltracine in my 40s, and that's because of gout. And we'll talk about what these parasites actually cause all your illnesses. Well, it's like a domino effect. Think about it. If you have a parasite, in your body, and there's how you diagnose it. The doctor's not going to do that because they wouldn't be making any money, right? So if they can diagnose a parasite, let's say parasite A, and if parasite A needs iron, zinc, and calcium, then you become deficient of those three things because the parasite's taking it from you, right? Because the parasite's in your lower intestines or large intestines. That's your immune system, by the way, and it's taking it, right? So then if you're deficient of these, you get all kind of new diseases, new sicknesses, allergies, whatever. Okay, I mean, you think of, in the life cycle, not life cycle, but the worst thing that could happen is you die, right? So some people go get a shot, some kind of, we'll call it an antidote, and then they die because it didn't work too good. And we're not going to get into that whole antidote thing. Then some people just get cancer. And how do you get cancer? Exposure, environmental, and a lot of times they don't tell you how you got it. But there's 500 things that you get before cancer. And those are the things you ignore, and you're like, oh, I'll go to the doctor, and oh, there's a red pill, a blue pill, a purple pill, a green pill. And you're taking these pills, and it takes care of this. But in the meantime, the whole thing started with maybe one or two things: a parasite, or an amoeba, or single cell parasite, protozoa. Now, we're mammals. So if you don't think that you're susceptible, and it took me 60 years to figure this out, and I'll tell you, I found out mine, and I'm starting, of course, I'm making this video before I start my cleanse. I'll start my cleanse tomorrow. And I did an experiment this week, which is stupid. I played with my body, and everything did what it did. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. And, well, anyways, back to the parasite. So if you have a parasite, and sometimes a parasite's like, a ringworm, or not a ringworm, let's say a treadworm. You could have that treadworm for 7, 8 years, and you have a problem. You have gout or something like that, and here it's the worm that's causing it. And it's probably easy to get rid of the worm. There's a lot of ways to do it. Sure, they have medication for worms, but you can also do it holistically, and that's what I'm trying. So this video is a 3 month thing for me. So I'll probably do a video update. I'll probably call it the same thing, first month, second month. I don't know how to do it, but I'm doing this for me so I could look this stuff up in the future, or I could tell my friends about it. But so my buddy calls me and says, "Hey, we're going up to Michigan. We're gonna go see this holistic doctor." And so, by the way, when you go to your doctor, they're gonna take your blood test, a urine sample, a stool sample. They're gonna tell you got this, and that, and they'll say you gotta take this pill, that. You can't eat that. You can't do this. But they know. They know that. Why don't they just test for your parasite? Let's get the parasite out. Then let's see what happens. Then let's cleanse our liver, our intestines. And once we do that, if we cleanse our intestines, lower, small, and large, our immune system goes up. Because that's your immune system, is your intestines. And if your immune system goes up, maybe you still have your problems, okay? But maybe they're not going to be thriving as much. I have gout, okay? And what's funny is, like, when I had it, I first diagnosed it, didn't know what it was, didn't know. And I was in my 40s, 20 years ago. But what I do for 20 years before that, or actually for at least, yeah, that's when I started going to college, okay? When I moved out, I moved out in my 20s, early 20s, and I was living in this really cool house, a Frank Lloyd Wright house, an original, the Penfield house, and I was going to college, and I ran a testing laboratory, and I was buying real estate. So I was on the road. So what did I do? I ate McDonald's and fast food, and I did that for 20 years, 15, 20 years, and that food caused problems, okay? And I'm not saying I got bugs and all that, but it depleted my body of stuff, and I eventually, got gout. So what causes gout? This is not a gout video, but it's got a lot to do with it. So my buddy says, "Hey, we're going up to Michigan." So we get in a car and we listen to some good tunes, and we go up to Michigan. And this holistic, he's not a doctor, he's not a scientist. He doesn't want to. He knows how to use a piece of equipment. He's been doing it for like decades. And the equipment he uses it's called electrodermal screening. Now, it's actually pretty cool the way it works. And there's literally 50, 67 years of testing it. Now, you got to remember a couple things. You know, when you have voltage, because your body is basically an electrical system, when you have voltage, what do you want to do with it? You want to use it directly? Sure. You want to resist it? You want to try to store it. A capacitor kind of stores things, right? So you got those the old early cameras have little capacitors in them, and they store the energy. If you touch one of those, and I did that once, take it apart. One of the first digital cameras, I had a bunch of them because being a home inspector, I took photos. And I remember I hit that thing, and man, I went flying across the room from a camera, taking them. You don't take apart cameras that have batteries in them and capacitors. But 10,000 volts, maybe no amps, it didn't kill me. But then you have what's called resistance, which slows things down. So if you were to connect this finger, and what's funny is if parademology, I don't know what the word is, but the acupuncture, all these medieval type um, healing methods that work. Acupuncture, it works. So like in this finger, there's a couple points in this finger, and it's gonna be tough to do. Let's see if I can do it. So maybe like this point here, right there, and this point, and this point. So right here is like 3 or 4 points in this finger alone, and those points connect to parts of your body or go through parts of your body. So if you were to put on this finger right on the bottom of that first node there, run some voltage through it, and in this hand you ground yourself with the copper, and you create a current, right? You create so your body becomes a wire, right? And then a certain voltage, a milliamps or volts or frequency you throw through your body, it will go to that part of your body because that's what acupuncture is. They hit one part of the body. And the way you know this is real, this is crazy, is you're like touching your foot somewhere, right? And you hit it, and it doesn't happen all the time. You hit it just right, and you feel every time you hit it in your back, you feel something happen there. You're like, whoa, how did that happen? You hit your foot, and, oh, there it is in the back again. So you know that this acupuncture stuff is connected. So now you run a certain amount of voltage, like very small amounts, and all of a sudden, if it stays normal, it's clean, right? There's no resistance. There's no resistor. But if you're checking out the lower small intestines, because this finger here on the second node below connects to that part or goes through that part, and you ground yourself, all of a sudden there's resistance. You're like, oh, the problem's in the lower intestines, in the middle of it, maybe not the top. And you could do your whole body that way. Well, that's what this electrodermal screening does. It's a piece of equipment. And I mean, you have to really know your stuff to get good at using certain electronic equipment, right? So this guy knows. He's been doing it for 30, I don't know how long. Okay, and he's a lot of people have gone to him, thousands of people, and they get better because he finds a parasite. His first thing he does, and I think that's his thing, is he will then run parasites through your body. So he's got these collection these little mini jars, and each one it has some type of resistance, and each parasite's different because they've been studying this. And so single cells, bugs will have if you got something in your lower intestines or larger intestines, that you run the voltage through it, and you ground yourself, and there's resistance. Oh, it might be that because everything has a frequency, everything has resistance. That's how he does it. But it only takes experience to know exactly how much. So what happens is once you find that out, there's other ways of doing this. You could just assume you have one, right? Excuse me. I caught a flu. I'm one of these people that if you get the flu, you have it for 2 weeks and you cough for 2 weeks after that. And part of it has to do with parasites too. And so that's how you find it. And now if you got your parasite and you're eating food, and all of a sudden it's stealing the food because it's in your small, because your stomach's connected to the small intestines, right? So if the parasites, he's not going to be in your stomach. And by the way, it's very rare to have more than one parasite because that's what he said, and that's what I looked up. And it's hard to find some of this stuff, but it's tough to have more than one parasite, because once his parasite becomes developed, he's got the whole system going too. So, if you have a treadworm or a protozoa or whatever bug that you might have, or worm or single cell, like, I don't, anyways, it goes through phases. So all of a sudden, you may have eggs being laid in your lungs, and you got the guys over here and going through the cycle. So if you do a cleanse, a lot of these cleanses, they work, right? And you clean yourself out, you feel good, and it lasts about 6 months. But then it comes back because maybe you didn't do it long enough. So the way this particular person does this is you got to do it for 3 months, because that we go through the cycles 3 times in a row. And so there's also types of antidotes you could take that will, like the antidote that will attack that particular frequency and that particular pest that you have in you, right? So, and then of course, he can test for metals and find out I had lead in me, and he could find out, if you have certain problems, because this thing has frequencies. So go through all your fingers and all the points, and at the end of the line, you got, you're deficient in zinc, you're deficient in iron, and you got these problems. You have gout, or you have anemia, or whatever you got, and it always boils down to that parasite, because that parasite is stealing something from you, okay? And it's because of that you're getting new problems. So basically, get rid of the parasite. So, like, I did a test, and I know a couple things. There's 3 types of food that I don't know why I'm still eating them, but they always, like, for example, like right now, watch this. Locked up, okay? And I gotta tell them more. There it is. Okay, that one's locked up today. This finger, watch. Ah, hear it? It just locks up. You know why? Inflammation. Inflammation is the number. And all of a sudden you see that word inflammation, right? That causes all the problems. And what is it? It's the food. And now, I don't know about you young people, because, hang on, I'm going to drink this great coffee that I don't sell. Maybe the young kids and young people, it takes a while. When you get older, you start to feel that inflammation and that pain. And I know that this week, the number one things that do it to me, and it's gout. Okay, it causes gout. What causes gout? Uric acid. Why do you have that? Because you're not filtering out what you're supposed to filter out. Why you can't? Because your liver can't do it. Why your liver can't do it? Because you probably messed it up a bit, because you had parasites that depleted your body of something, right? Get rid of the parasite, find out. And if you don't want to go through the process of finding out what it is, then, a lot of people do these cleanses. Maybe you got to do the cleanse 3 months in a row. Maybe that's the ticket, or maybe you could find somebody that does this type of service. And I'm trying to, give me a second here. I must have dropped that piece of paper. I don't do scripts, and I don't. But the only reason I have my script is because I can't pronounce some of these words. Anyway, so the 3 things that do it to me are tomatoes, and it's kind of sad because this year I had like 1,300 tomatoes in my gardens, and I canned the stuff. So I guess moderation, I could have some tomatoes, but that triggers inflammation, and also what triggers inflammation, number one trigger for me, and I didn't know it. I always thought it was, they tell you red meat and shellfish, and sure they do that, trigger. And I'm talking about gout for me, and you may have something else or not, but it's the food that triggers all this stuff. And the number one food that triggers it is wheat and sugar. They're tied. So this week I learned how to use a bread maker. So I'm going to probably have to do gluten-free, okay? But anyways, this morning, for the whole week, it was getting tough for me. Now I got my walker out, and I'm taking some pain, and they won't give you pain medication. You know, they used to give you pain medication. Now it's like very difficult to get it. But the problem is, once you get it, you get put on a computer program, and the government knows you're taking pain medication, and they're making all these new laws, like you can't own guns if you have a mental illness. And one of our presidents changed in one of his executive orders, changed the definition of mental illness, which now includes what? Oh, people that have depression, people that are pain medication. So if you have a therapy pet, I believe that's on that list, which means you have a mental illness. And if you have mental illness 10 years from now, no gun for you, no bullets for you. They haven't enforced this, but it's there. Yeah, so that's the whole thing with the pain. But I figured out a trick, and this is bad. It's bad, but it works. If you take 1,000 milligrams of ibuprofen and 1,000 milligrams of Tylenol, between the two, it you do it like 4 hours apart. The second hit, there's no pain. It's like, whoa, a really bad thing to figure out. And it's something that's practiced by a lot of people. The doctors want you to know about that because they want you to go visit them. They make money off of you, and they want you to come see them every 6 months, to test your blood. In the meantime, they're not checking for your amoebas, and they're not checking for your protozoa to see if you got a protozoa. They're not checking to see if you got a parasite. And so I figured out I got a parasite. Yeah. Um, and so, and I believe him. I totally believe him because he made me realize. And what's funny is when I'm talking to the guy, you don't have to even talk to this guy. And he's not just the only one that does this. You can find your own people. I'm sure there's a lot of people who do this. You don't even have to go visit them, because if you send a piece of hair, your body will put everything in your hair. It's a signature, and he'll run to do like a hair sample, or I think fingernails might work, because hair is better. And like I have a family member who is a judge now, but he was a lawyer, and he made forensic files. And the way they nailed this, one of the people, is he poisoned his business partner with arsenic, and they got it from his hair. He knew exactly what day he did it. You go watch it, Forensic Files. It was my family member was the prosecuting attorney on that case, and and so you send a piece of hair. You don't have to. I didn't want to do that. I want to go talk to the guy. So I drove down there, but you could just send. You'd be able to, across the world, send a sample out to somebody. They could run it through one of these machines, and that machine will tell you what's wrong with your body, just by knowing your hair sample. If you eat something right now, it's in your hair sample. I don't know how fast. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but it doesn't take long. Okay, and if you eat a lot of stuff for a couple of days, it's in your hair. So you could find parasites by knowing by doing DNA testing of your, not DNA, but a testing of the hair samples. So anyways, so I didn't tell him about any of my issues. I didn't tell him about this. I didn't tell him about my lung. I didn't tell him nothing. And as he was talking to me, he said, "Well, this happens with you, and this could happen." It's like, oh my God, these are things that are happening to me right now. And it was all related back to that parasite. And certain parasites deplete you of certain minerals, and certain minerals will cause those 500 things to happen. And then you run to your doctor and you take another drug, and that just screws everything up. Like I was taking colchicine. Colchicine works. Yeah, it works. And and I even try to make my own colchicine, because when I was taking it back 20 years ago, it was only $5. And then the patent ran out. And these scammers, all of a sudden, they repatent it. And I don't have good hospitalization. And so they wanted to charge me $500. I mean, for the same thing that I was paying $5 for. And and then I had a fight with them. And they got it down to 220. And then I fought with them again the next year, and then some president changed a few things, and it was down to $1.60. Now it's down to $30. Okay, because I keep changing my medical insurance, and it's only. But if it cost me $5 20 years ago, it probably cost them a nickel to make the same drug. They just repatent it, and they're still charging $30. Well, think about it. If it cost a nickel, 30. Think of that markup. Think how much money these people. So, and this is kind of crazy. Don't ever do what I'm going to tell you to do. So I'm like, okay. I looked at the patent. I reverse engineered it, and it was a bug. It was a root of a plant called colchicine. Yeah, and so then I bought a book on colchicine plants, and found out it was this root. So then I got on the internet, and I ordered this root from a third world country. And while I was ordering it, I found something else. And it's like inflammation. Like, oh, give me some of that too. Belladonna. Big mistake. And like, I just thought it was tea because I make my own teas. And so then all of a sudden, I get this stuff and I try a little bit. And I shave it down. And I try it like, oh my God, it works. But I didn't know how much to take. And so like, well, why don't I just put it in tea? And so I made tea one day with the culture scene. I threw it in there, shaved it down, and I threw some of the other stuff, inflammation, because when you got gout, you can't walk. And by the way, the first thing that happens is your toe hurts, and it starts moving your way up because poison moves from your feet up. From your feet up. When you cleanse, you go from your brain down. We're not going to get into that because you can learn all that on your own. And so it starts off there, and all of a sudden your knee's bad, and you think you got a torn ligament because I did. I got a cadaver part 1 foot. I had a hand gliding accident 30, 40 years ago. And so I have torn ligament, right? And now, but your knee hurts. Oh, my ligament's going bad. No, man, it's just inflamed. And then it moves up to your hip. And the worst part is the elbow and your shoulder. And I thought I had a torn rotator cuff. And it was the food I was eating. It was the wheat, the sugar. And, it wasn't, and sure, the meat does it. And people say coffee does it. Coffee just kind of prolongs the sickness. So if you got gout like me, you might have something else. And I drink a lot. I'm drinking coffee right now, dummy, and I can barely walk. That's what I was talking about. We're wired in a way that we're like, I got to hand it to certain people that can just say no. That's why they have like AAA or AA. People like they go to that because they know they can't drink one drink. If they drink one, they'll have one every day. And same with drug addicts and whatever. We all have our issues. Oh, here we go again. 60 years old. I forget what I was talking about. Um, I went off on a tangent. See, I purposely don't do scripts so I can. This is like a mind thing for me. Try to remember. It's good for your mind when you're 60 to keep it working. So I was talking about amoebas. I know all that, but I was going to tell. Oh yes, talk about my tea story. And so I throw that in there, and then I'm going. I'm getting cotton mouth, like so many people smoke weed, you get cotton mouth, right? You get munchies. Like, what's going on? Drink more tea, more tea, more tea. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, what's going on? My electrical system's crashing. And I couldn't even type. I couldn't see straight. And I used both hands, and I'm thinking I'm getting a stroke. So I'm typing in my phone, holding one. I can't do it because I'm holding the phone with this hand. And I got my hand on my finger, and STRO. And like, oh my God, I'm having a stroke. And I had to crawl up and knocking on the door. My kid, take me to the hospital. I'm like mumbling, and so she's like freaking out. Takes me to the hospital. And of course, I go to the hospital. That's closed. Well, they moved. They're moving the hospital. It's Lakewood. They're moving it to another place. So they're still in a little small emergency room, and I'm downstairs lost in an empty building at like 2 in the morning. Finally, we figure out getting the elevator. There's an emergency room. Whatever. Make a long story short, they take me to these other hospitals, and I almost overdosed on supposedly culture scene. Then in the morning they said, "What'd you do?" And I said, "I made my own my own medicine." They go, "Dude, you can't do it." And he looks at me. Go, "Look, culture scene's poisonous. This is what can happen to you." I didn't think anything. It was the belladonna, right? So I get out of there. 2 weeks later, I'm making tea again. Like, oh, no culture scene for you. But the belladonna, yeah, let's throw that in there. That's how stupid I am. And so I threw that in there and made another batch of tea. And all of a sudden, 30 minutes later, oh no. I'm having my tea for my wife too. Want some tea, honey? Yeah, sure. So I give her the tea. And I drink the tea, and my wife's one of these people that you could put food down and she'll like take off and like go clean something or move something to the garage and like then come back and eat it and then heat it up again. Me, man, you put food on the table, I'm inhaling that right now. Okay, some of us are different. I'm not gonna set my drink down and come back to my scotch 20 minutes later. I'm inhaling that bitch right now. And so she was smart. She got distracted and went and did something. And here I'm drinking my tea the second time. I'm going, and I go, honey, take me to the hospital. It's happening again. I go, did you drink your tea? Because you got to go too. And she goes, no, I didn't drink it. I'm like, oh, thank God. Till today, she won't drink any of my teas. Till today. And I got a ton of herbs, So don't make your medicine. Anyways, So I go see this guy. Oh, by the way, I have a service. I'm really a home inspector. I've been doing it for 40 years. I've inspected 18,000 homes. I'm really good at this. I have a service for people all over the country. They call me, you just Google Call Marko with a question, Marco's with a K, and you get to talk to me for your house problem. And, at that point, if you're looking for this particular name of this person that I go to, I'll give it to you at that point. But I'm not going to put this down on my in my comments. If you could find your own. If you can't find somebody, you have to pay me. It's not a whole lot of money. You call me, and at least I could talk to you. I don't want to just tell you what I did, and then I give you the guy's number if you want, or you could find your own, and you don't necessarily have to use this particular method, that I just told you earlier in the video, and he did find a parasite, and he also found that I was lead poisoned somehow. But I already knew I was lead poisoned. I had lead poisoned my whole life. It's probably why I had problems as a kid. That's why I got kicked out of a few schools and kicked out of a private school dormitory. I mean, that's why I had a hard time, with grades. I was always on academic and disciplinary probation at a private school. The only reason they kicked me out was because I was a diver and a soccer player. And then I don't know how I pulled off getting an engineering degree. No clue, but I did, and so I get through it. I'm 60, and so these are the big things. Oh, by the way, call Marko with a question. You want to talk to me? I can help you with your house problem. Also, I have links below. I do some Amazon stuff. Please rate, subscribe. I'm not done yet. Almost done. So think about what you're eating. A lot of these people they don't eat meat, so they're vegans. But you know what? They eat some bad stuff too. So I think that we have to know our bodies, and we have to how to repair a small PVC flat roof. You know, yeah, okay. I'm live. Some people are asking me questions. Um, yeah, I don't want to talk about roofs. I want to finish this. And so you find out what's wrong with what your body doesn't like. And if something happens, like this morning, I showed you my finger locked up. Well, last night I had my own broth, and I made rice with that broth. It was all tomatoes, pure tomatoes. And I had a vodka tonic, not vodka tonic. I had a screwdriver, which is orange juice. Fruit is sugar, and then I didn't have any meat all week, but it didn't matter. I had tomatoes all week. I made my own bread or wheat, and I had sugar. Those are the three worst things you could possibly eat. And now it's Sunday morning. I'm making this video, and this is really bad, but I got walkers all over the place. I got like 6 walkers in the bedrooms, and because we have 2 houses. Where these people have a cottage in the house, and I go to Cleveland a lot, and I come here, and vice versa. My wife likes to stay here because she takes care of her dad, and whatever. But a lot of times I can't walk, and it's because of what I ate, and I can't believe how stupid I am that I already knew these problems. But for me, I nailed it. It's tomatoes, wheat, and sugar. And you know what? If you look any one of those up, they're all bad. Now tomatoes are okay because you need some of those nutrients, but you can't have them all day. And there's a couple also. So if I was a vegan, I thought that was the thing. I tried to become a vegan, didn't work, and then I became vegan. All of a sudden, my gout got worse, and I realized that it was also broccoli for me, and it was asparagus. It was asparagus and broccoli. Some of the greens did it. The greens did it, And then I would drink coffee, and I realized, this is like 20 years of experimenting with gout, and now it's like if I eat a certain food, my right knee goes. If I eat a different food, my elbow goes. The elbow's the worst. Oh my God, the elbow one doesn't go away. That one's a week long. You can't even use your arm. The shoulder one's bad. It's like if you ever had a rotator cuff, and it's usually my right shoulder, and now my left one once in a while. And so it just kind of bounces around. So I can almost predict, and the way I know is in the morning, I get up, I cross my hand. Oh, there it is. Which finger's locked up? And that one there, the middle one's locked up. And it's not, well, I can see I could do it. Sometimes I can't even do it. I have to use it. The other hand, there it is. It's inflammation in the joints. And that causes degeneration in your bones. And so it's all the food, and your doctors aren't going to tell you that. they're just going to do a blood test and say you're low of this, take this vitamin, take that, and it could very well be the amoeba that you have. The amoeba, not the amoeba, the parasite that you have. Amoeba is just one of them. And so if you're looking to figure out what it is, you could either say, I got one, and just do a cleanse, then do a liver cleanse, and just remember, the parasites like the intestine, especially, it goes into small, then it goes large, and then leaves, right? They're not in your stomach. Certain worms go in the stomach, and the acid in there can cause an issue. So you can have all these problems caused by a parasite, and your doctor ain't gonna tell you what it is, and 80% of us have it. So if you don't think you have one, great, you know. But if you get rid of it, I'm not saying you're gonna cure your problems. And like I said, I've been my own experiment my whole life. In the last 20 years, I mean, what the hell was I experimenting eating wheat this week? And why was I doing sugar? It's almost impossible not to. So everything, if you have some sugar one day, but you can't do it 2, 3 days in a row, you can't, eat meat 3 days in a row. You can eat meat today and then this this way your body knows how to handle it, because you're probably not going to fix it as you get older. Things are going to, it's not. Inflammation is the number one thing that's a problem, and that causes all kind of sicknesses. Anyways, this is a video for me, so I can listen to it again next month when I make another video. I'm gonna start the cleansing and see how it works, and I'll try to keep you up, see what happens. Maybe my next video I'll be like 10 pounds lighter. I'll be running up and down the steps. We'll see. And but it's I'm gonna be fighting a parasite, I guess. I can't see the thing, but I believe that it's there. Please rate, subscribe. If you want to know what I'm doing, you can call Mark with a question. I hate to do that, but I'm not going to put this out there. And Marko. But if you have a house problem, somebody asked me, and I'll try to go later today on my computer and answer your question, whoever was on. So hey, thanks for coming on.